Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and today on the show, I'm going to answer that question, why don't I feel close to God? So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Well, hey friend, happy Friday. Welcome back. I am so excited to have you here today. Listen, I am flying high on adrenaline because we've had two master classes this week, two of the three master classes. That is the five, in case you didn't listen or didn't catch last week's episode, this is my free masterclass, 5 prayer pitfalls and how to avoid them. And so I put this, I host this once or twice a year. And so right now it's going on. I still have one more masterclass. If you have not had an opportunity to join me for the first two, be sure to hop on over to footprintsofinspiration.com/pitfalls. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/pitfalls. If you're driving around, don't worry. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you want to get registered for it. It's a free masterclass. We have had so much fun in it this week. Again, free masterclass, but you do need to get registered for it. So be sure to do that. So listen, this week or today, I am sharing with you and answering that question, why don't I feel close to God? I hear this question all the time. I get every week my inbox, which I love, by the way, is bombarded with questions. I get emails and I get messages on Facebook and Instagram, Tammy, why don't I feel close to God? Look, Tammy, I'm doing all the right things, but I just don't feel close to God. Or maybe you feel like you've drifted from God because of things that have happened in your life, whether it's been to you or because of you, and you're feeling like maybe you just aren't feeling close to God. So listen, back in March, I actually recorded a 2-part series on drawing closer to God. It was episode number 112 and 113. You don't have to listen to those before you listen to this episode, but definitely go back and listen to those. As with all my episodes, all you have to do is go to footprintsofinspiration.com/ and then the episode number. So footprintsofinspiration.com/112 is where you'll start. And definitely go back and listen to those. But in today's show, I want to talk to you about, what does close to God mean? Because we want to talk about that first. Like, what does it truly mean? Why you aren't feeling close to God? And then I'm also going to talk to you about how to draw closer to God. So being close to God or feeling close to God, it actually is characterized by an intimate relationship with Him. Now, this happens when we are staying in constant communication with Him, when we learn to trust and put our faith in God. It also is when we rely on Him. These three things, again, staying in communication with Him, learning to trust in Him, and also learning to rely on Him. These things characterize feeling close to God. The reason you don't feel close to God isn't because God isn't near. It's not, my friends. It's not. It has absolutely nothing to do with Him. He is with you, whether you feel Him or not. He is. He hasn't gone anywhere. If you're not feeling close to God, I've got news for you, my friend. This is a tough one. There's a little bit of tough love. It's because you aren't inviting Him into your day. It's because you're not learning and taking that step outside your comfort zone to learn how to trust in Him. You're not doing the work that needs to be done. The thing is we can't sit on the sidelines and expect to feel all the feels, right? And all this warm, gushy feeling of God feeling close to us. We have all these distractions, more distractions in our life right now than we've ever had. And so we've got to do the work. We've got to invite Him into our lives. We've got to draw Him closer to us, right? He's there, whether we feel Him or not. We've got to remember that truth. Remember, feelings aren't facts. Just because we don't feel Him doesn't mean He isn't there. The thing is, friend, knowing about God and knowing God are two very different things. Let me repeat that because that's so incredibly important. Knowing about God and actually knowing God are two very, very different things. We can know about God. I knew about God for most of my life. It wasn't until I was, in my 40s, I think, before I learned, or before I truly learned, not about God, but knowing God. When I actually took the time to get to know God more on a deeper and intimate level. And how do we do that? Through prayer, through Bible study, and by intentionally setting our minds on Him throughout the day, right? We have to because we get busy. We get busy. Life is hard. We've made mistakes. People have hurt us. All the things that we have to deal with day in and day out. Of course, we're not always going to feel Him near us. That's one of those unrealistic expectations, thinking that because we don't feel God that He isn't there, right? Or thinking that when we're following God that we should always feel Him. No, that doesn't happen. The thing is there's work we have to do. We have to intentionally pursue God. Again, through prayer, through Bible study, and intentionally setting our minds on Him throughout the day. And sometimes that's just as much as looking up and whispering a thank you, Lord. Thank you. I know you're with me. Thank you for the beautiful trees. You probably heard me. If you've been with me any length of time, you know I'm a tree lover. So I'm driving down the road and I see these beautiful trees and I say, Lord, thank you for the trees. I'm taking a pause in my day and setting my mind on Him. If we want to experience if we want to feel closer to God, if we want to have a relationship with God and experience that growth and transformation, experience the life He created for us, that we have to remember something. We have to remember that all lasting transformation happens in the presence of God. Did you catch that? All lasting transformation happens in the presence of God. We can't go about our day, our busy, busy lives, and not set our minds on Him, not invite Him into our day through prayer, not ever get into the Word and expect to feel close to God. We have to put in the work. We have to take those steps. There are things that we must do if we want to feel close to God. Again, it's not because He isn't there. He's there. He's just waiting for us to invite Him in. John 15:4 teaches us this. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. That entire verse, my friend, shows that there is an action we must take. There's an if-then in there. The language if-then isn't there, but if you remain in me, then I will remain in you. That shows He's there. But you've got to do the work, my friend. You've got to invite Him in through prayer, right? You've got to get into the Word to learn about the character of God. You've got to set your mind on Him throughout the day. How do you do this? Lord, remind me today to set my mind on you. This takes training. This isn't something that just happens okay, I'm going to set my mind on God throughout the day. No. You've been going through life, these busy, chaotic lives, the way you like this for years and years. It takes training to do that. But if you remain in Him, then He will remain in you. If you are severed from the vine, then what does it say? If you're severed from the vine, you cannot be fruitful. If you are severed from the vine, you cannot feel His presence. You've got to remain in Him, my friend. So what are some of those things that make you feel like you aren't close to God, or make you feel like you're not feeling God's presence? Number one, living in your past mistakes. Yeah. How many times have you thought, there's no way God could love a person like me after all the things I've done? I spent many years yelling at God from my bed. Why did you take my life from me? Why did you do this? I spent so much time living in my circumstances, in the pain and the agony, rather than turning into Him, leaning into Him. In Hebrews chapter 8, 12, it says this, I will forgive them for their wicked things they did. I will not remember their sins anymore. If you're living in past mistakes, my friend, you've got to remember, God's already forgotten about them. Why are you still sitting in it? Why are you? Your past does not define who you are as a Christian woman. Your identity lies in the fact that you are a child of God. That's it. That's it. You are a child of God. What you've done in your past has absolutely no bearing on whether or not God loves you, on whether or not God is near to you, on whether or not God has a life for you. That does not define you. You've got to stop living in your past. So again, number one, you're living in your past if you aren't feeling close to God. That may be one of the things. Number two, you're too focused on the future. You're so busy praying for what's ahead. Lord, I need this, I want this to happen. And you aren't taking a moment to sit right here, right now, in the blessings, the things that you were praying for before. We all get complacent with this. We spend so much time praying for what we want to see happen and very little time enjoying the blessings that he's given us right now, those very things that we were praying for in the past. We spend so much time worrying about the future, and that worry clouds our ability to see God. It clouds our ability to see God. Friend, we've got to learn to live in the present moment with God, right? We've got to learn to take that worry and give it over to God. And listen, there are some days, well, first, by the way, we have to do that every day. This isn't a one and done thing. We don't hand our fears and our worries to God and then expect to never, ever have fear and worry again. That's absurd, right? No. And that's normal. We weren't called to do, this was never God's intention, was us to give it to him one and done, it'd be a one and done thing. No, we are called to hand this over every single day. And on some days, when the fear and the worry are just bombarding us, there's so much going on, we're going to have to do that over and over and over again. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing, my friend. That's an opportunity to draw closer to God. So stop seeing it as a bad thing. That's a great opportunity for you to draw closer to God. And the third reason that you may not be feeling close to God is that you're caught up in the busyness of this life. We have more distractions going on in our life right now than ever before. With our phones, we've gotten to the point where we think that as soon as that phone goes off, we've got to check those notifications. We're running our kids ragged here, there. I mean, I know I'm showing my age here, but how many of you can sit there and say, yeah, when I was a kid, right? We would go and play outside all day long. Best summers ever, right? No, we didn't have cell phones taking away our distractions. We weren't shipped off to every single activity under the sun. Hey, friends, and no judgment here. We were one of the, we were a set of those parents that were taking it was basketball early on, but football and baseball. And we were from one tournament to the next. And every weekend was here and there and trying to fit church in and talk about your priorities being wrong, right? But all the different things. We are so busy right now that we can't feel close to God. We've got to make that ask. We've got to go to him and say, Lord, help me enjoy this moment with you. Help me sit in the present with you. Don't worry about an hour from now, 2 hours from now. Just take a moment throughout the day to set your mind on him, to feel his presence, to breathe him in. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll just stop for a second, take a nice deep breath in, blow it out, and just say, Jesus, 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 right? Because what is that Bible verse? Forgive me. I know I've talked about it in recent episodes, but come close to God and God will come close to you. When you stop and you just say again, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. What's happening is you're stopping, you're setting your mind on him, and he's turning towards you. He hasn't left you, but he's turning towards you. He wants you to invite him in. He wants to be a part of your everyday. But you've got to invite him in. You've got to learn how and train yourself to let go of some of those distractions. You do not Despite what you think, you do not have to answer every single notification that comes up on your phone right then and there. Now, granted, I realize if you have kids, that makes it a little tough because something could happen with the kids. But you don't have to do this. This took a lot of training on my part. But now when the phone goes off, I don't immediately go to what it was. I like check it and see what it was. I don't do that. Why? Because it'll be there, a few minutes from now, an hour from now, and I can address it then. We've got to let go of some of the busyness. If we aren't feeling closer to God or close to God, I want you to check yourself, and I want you to ask yourself, am I letting the busyness rule my day? Am I letting the busyness rule my day? Right? So let me just repeat those again. Number 1 is living in the past. Number 2 is you're too focused on the future. And number 3 is you're letting the busyness rule your day. Those are the reasons that you may not be feeling close to God. So how do you grow closer to God through prayer? Back in episode number 129, I talked about the 7 effective prayer types to help you grow closer to God. Again, that's footprintsofinspiration.com/129. Of course, I'll put that link in the show notes. But we talked in there about the 7 most effective types of prayer. But if you aren't feeling close to God, here's what I want to talk to you about. Start with some meditative prayer, right? We talked about this. Again, I'm not going to go into each type of prayer, but because we talked about that back in episode 129, but meditative prayer, right? When you are meditating. Now, I'm not talking about the woo-woo stuff, right? We're not talking about meditation and focusing on your inner being and who you are and overcoming and all of that. No. I'm saying meditation is simply setting your mind on something and reflecting on it, right? That's what meditation is. And so what you want to do is set your mind on God. One of the things I've done a lot, and I think I even mentioned it that day or in that episode, is lately I've been listening to the Glorify app. Absolutely love the Glorify app, by the way. And I'll listen to the Glorify app while I'm sitting down and stretching first thing in the morning before I even get started. It helps me set my mind on Him. Once the app is finished, because you can read it or listen to it. I always listen to it. And I sit there and I just stretch and I'm setting my mind on God. This helps me feel closer to Him. I'm listening to that Glorify app. And when that's done, I'm just finishing out my stretches by being in prayer with Him. And again, meditative prayer, by setting my mind on Him. The second type of prayer that you can do to help you feel closer to God is prayer anchoring. You've heard me talk about this on the show before, and it's something I teach inside Confident Prayer Warrior. Is prayer anchoring is simply taking those mindless tasks you do every day: washing the dishes, emptying the dishwasher, laundry, folding clothes, morning walk, trying to think, exercising, right? Take those mindless tasks you do every day and invite God into them, right? That's inviting God in throughout the day. What this does is this helps you feel more connected to God. You're going to start to feel His presence when you're inviting Him into those, in throughout your day. One of the things, my assistant does, Linda, one of the things she does is in the morning, as she's making her bed, she's learned to invite God into that, and she prays for her marriage as she's making the bed in the morning. How simple is that? How simple is that? Every day she's praying for her marriage, and she's bringing God in, inviting Him in, making her feel, or then she's better able to feel His presence. Again, the reason you're not feeling close to God isn't because He isn't there. It's because you're not drawing Him in. You're not inviting Him in. So prayer anchoring is number 2. It's a great way, phenomenal way to start feeling closer to God. Number 3 is prayer journaling. One of my favorite things to do. One of the ways that I actually feel the closest to God. It's when I hear Him the most is when I'm using my prayer journal. Now, if you've never used a journal or you're thinking to yourself, you know what, Tammy, I am just not a journal girl. I get it. I hear you. I didn't start journaling till my 40s. It was something different, new for me. But it was what I found to be where I feel the most connected to God. So give it a try is my point. Don't count it out just because, oh, you're not a journaler. You'd be surprised at what happens when you start writing down your prayers. Number one, you get to see the spiritual journey and you get to see where God has answered your prayers. It's also going to help you learn to trust God more, put your faith in him more, because you're going to be able to look back and see how he answered those prayers. Do not discount prayer journaling. Listen, you don't need anything fancy. Grab a notebook. At the time I'm recording this, at the time that you're going to get this episode, you are getting ready to start school. And so pick up an extra notebook. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be as cheap as can be, or use an old notebook that the kids brought home from school last year, because let's face it, friends, they never use the entire notebook. It used to drive me crazy. They never use the entire notebook. And yet every year they needed a new one, right? Yeah. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, anything expensive. But if you're like me and you like a good prayer journal, I actually have over on the blog, I have the 15 best prayer journals for spiritual growth and to help you grow closer to God. You can go to footprintsofinspiration.com/best prayer journal. Again, it's footprintsofinspiration.com/best prayer journal. And again, I'll put that link in the show notes. You can go over there and see my favorite prayer journals that I use. And then number 4, what can help you feel closest to God? Again, these are the best ways to help you feel closest to God through prayer, is praise and worship. Man, I'll tell you, I'll tell you what, friends, there is nothing like praise and worship music to bring you and draw you closer to God. I have a praise and worship playlist. You can follow that over on Spotify. You do not need the paid account to do that, but it's footprintsofinspiration.com/worship music. Again, footprintsofinspiration.com/worship music. Last time I checked, I think I have almost 18 hours of playlist or songs on there. So you are never going to get tired of the songs. There are tons of them over on there, and I'm always adding new ones. Right now, my favorite one is, now that I'm saying it on the spot, it's about prayer, and I believe it's Crowder. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I can't remember now. That's terrible. I can't remember now, but I've been playing it on repeat. I should know what it is. I won't look now because then that'll just take up time. But anyway, it's on the playlist. Go over, listen to the playlist. But praise and worship music is a great way to help you feel more connected to God. Friend, if you aren't feeling close to God, it's not because he's left you. It's not because he isn't there. It's not because he doesn't love you. It's not because of your past. It's not because of anything you have or haven't done. It's because you aren't inviting him in. Plain and simple. He hasn't left you. There's absolutely nothing you can or cannot do. Am I saying that right? There's absolutely nothing you can or can't do that will change that. Nothing. He loves you so much. He's just waiting for you to invite him in. So again, when we're talking about prayer, meditation, right? Prayers and meditation. We're talking about praise and worship. We're talking about prayer journal, and there was one more, and I just lost my train of thought. Forgive me. You know what? Something just went off in my house. The songs just went on for some reason. Prayer anchoring was the 4th one. So let me repeat that. Something my Alexa went off in another room, and I was trying to figure out what that was. Anyway, so the 4 types of prayer that'll help you feel closer to God: meditative prayer, prayer anchoring, prayer journaling, and praise and worship. Draw close to God, right? James chapter 4, verse 8. This is what I was talking about earlier. Come close to God, and God will come close to you. Wash your hands, your sinners. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. Make God your number one priority. Make serving God, connecting with God, your priority. Then you will feel closer to God. Friend, don't forget, we have the final free masterclass happening this coming Wednesday. Sign up now at footprintsofinspiration.com/pitfalls. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/pitfalls. And the free masterclass is 5 prayer pitfalls that's hard to say, and how to avoid them. So I'm going to address the 5 most common pitfalls and how you can avoid them so that you can create a deep and meaningful relationship with God, so that you can draw closer to God and feel closer to God and show up more confidently in the way that you pray. All right, my friend, I love showing up for you each and every week. I love bringing this stuff to you. If this blessed you today, would you do me a favor? Would you hop on over and leave me a review wherever you are listening to the show? I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And it really helps us get this message out there and out to more women, because that is my mission, is to get out there in front of as many women as possible to just share how to grow closer to God through prayer and Bible study without feeling so insecure and overwhelmed. That is my mission. And so you can help me do that by leaving me a review. All right, friends, listen, I will meet you back here next week for another episode of a Faithful God podcast.